1945 out of Philly.
Yeah.
And you grew up in a conservative Catholic family.
Catholic family, yeah.
Your family, you were originally a Republican.
As a kid, I was very conservative. In fact, after the '60 race, I moved more conservative. I was like Hillary Clinton. I was a Goldwater person. A lot of thoughtful people were for Goldwater because he was a philosophical alternative to the status quo. By the way,
yeah,
I'm not sure he would have taken us into Vietnam.
You don't
Johnson did that.
You don't think
Johnson did that
Yes.
after he promised peace. Remember?
Yes, sir.
He was going to give us peace in '64, and he gave us the war in '65.
And in '68.
And Hillary Clinton voted to authorize the war.
In '68.
So don't count on the liberal Democrats to keep you out of war. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. In '68, because of civil rights and Vietnam, you then decided to
Civil rights mainly, because you don't understand this unless you lived in the time, but civil rights was the biggest issue in the '60s up until '67 or so. Civil rights was the biggest issue. All the country, all the protest music, all the culture of the '60s, of youth culture, was all about this, the Peter, Paul and Mary, the Bob Dylan. It was all about what was happening in the South. Everything was about that. And then King was the star, Was there any leader of the anti-war movement on the level of King and civil rights? No, because civil rights was, as I said, '63, '68 riots. It really carried on a long way. Amazing thing that people don't get. It's one reason Bobby Kennedy had an edge on Gene McCarthy, because he was both an anti-war guy and a civil rights guy.
You became a top aide for Tip O'Neill and other congressmen.
Well, there was a period of transition. I was for Gene McCarthy in '68, and I voted for Humphrey and Muskie in '68 because of civil rights, Humphrey, and because of, I like Muskie. He was the closest thing to Gene McCarthy I could find.
You ran for the 4th Congressional District
in Philly, in the Democratic primary in '74 when I was 28.
You took on
I took on an entrenched incumbent who was a deputy chair of the city political machine, the Democratic machine, which is pretty hard to beat. I did okay, though. I had a lot of kids. I had 400 high school kids, a lot of volunteer effort. We got the literature out, and I made some noise. I concentrated. See, it was a Jewish and a Catholic district, and I spent a lot of time in the Jewish part of the district thinking that I had to pull an upset, I had to do it there. If I had focused in the Irish part of the neighborhood, I could have gotten a much higher percentage. But I didn't think it would serve any purpose. I could have just pounded it out in 66 Ward, and I think it was I don't remember all the wards now, but I could have worked one side of the boulevard, which was Catholic cops and firemen. The other side was Jewish teachers. I could have worked the Catholic side more, but I wanted to win. I wanted to pull an upset. So I went down and went door to door on his street. I just wanted to bring it to him. Your kind of politics. You understand this.
Absolutely.
In your face.
That's right. Hey, now, what was it like to
But it helped me because because my first boss on Capitol Hill, Frank Moss, a Utah Democratic senator, said maybe you ought to dip a little deeper into these political waters. And then when I came back from losing that race, he embraced me. He not only took me back on the staff, but he gave me this big job with, he pushed for a big job with Senator Muskie on the budget committee for me. And that really got me started on the way to the White House and Tip and everything. So it really, running and losing at a young age is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing.
You worked for Tip O'Neill.
I also drove them crazy, these people. They still can't handle it.
You worked for Tip O'Neill for 6 years.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It's like 10 PhDs in political science. Of course, there's no such thing as political science, but the art of politics, yeah. It showed me about guts. Tip O'Neill was an amazingly courageous guy. He was this big guy, a liberal, and at a time when the country was moving to the right and Reagan was so popular. And yet every morning he would get up and face the music and defend what he believed in. Every day, just taking it on, knowing that he was perceived as old hat. That's really what guts is, I think. It's not, diving into a swimming pool with sharks. It's getting up every day and being what you believe in. Every day.
You have 4 books written.
I've got 5, baby.
5?
Life's a Campaign. It's coming up in October.
That's right. Your 5th
and Mimi's got a
October.
big party for me. It's going to be at the one of the churches here. It's going to be the first Saturday in October. A big book party. Athenaeum's behind it. It's going to be big time up here. I hope everybody comes. Everybody's up here year round because I'm coming back for it. And Mimi's been great at Mitchell's.
Nice.
I go to Mitchell's all the time.
How'd you hear about Nantucket?
What? Who doesn't know about Nantucket? I came here for my honeymoon. Kathleen and I came here in 1980. We didn't have any money. We stayed downtown at a place we ran on Quint Street, and then big planner I didn't have anything planned for the second week. So then we went out and we went to a real estate agent around here, actually, near Broad Street, somewhere right around that area. We make that turn at Broad Street, and near the docks. And I got a place at basically some sort of farmhouse kind of place way out in Wisconsin. We didn't have any money to rent it. We rented a Jeep for like 1 day. That's all we could afford. And I get stuck, of course. You know, we didn't know how to do that. He didn't know how to do the air pressure thing. You know, we stayed. We drank at I was back when I was drinking, so we went to the Opera House a lot of nights, and boy, that was a great place to drink. What I love that place, the Opera House, and had a great time. So she fell in love with the place, and we started to come back a lot with NBC in the film festival. And then we finally, we used to stay, Bob Wright and Suzanne would find a place for us to stay at the Barnett's usually, or the Gordon Gunn's house, Gordon and Lily. And eventually we fell in love with the idea of an upside-down house, and we bought an upside-down house from Joan Bingham, this fabulous house in Matacasham. We got 50 acres around us. We have 5 acres. It's out on the water. It's got our own stairway. It's surrounded by silence and deer and rabbits. So we come to Nantucket, then we go to our house. See, we look at it as a 2-step trip. We come here to the airport, and then we go to our house. We live pretty far away.
Hardball's been on TV for
10 years this year, yeah. And the Chris Matthews Show 5.
What goes into producing one of those episodes? How much work, how much time?
Well, we have about 7 producers, and they work all day. I just had a phone call. Mike Barnacle's subbing for me this week, and I just called in Connie Fitzsalis, who's running the show this week, and talked about our lineup, and I was very happy with what they're doing. And you know, you pick out a big story, then you pick out a great page 2 story, which is sort of inside politics, quirky. It's sort of interesting to people who want to know what's really going on. And then you have a really good potpourri, 5 items, leading with a kicker for the C block, then a good debate, and then a great roundtable. So it's 5 parts: front page, second page, basically page 6, as in the New York Post, and then a great debate, then a roundtable, based upon everything we've talked about before. We're really refining it to these 5 franchises. Doing more like Keith. Keith's been very effective with the countdown idea. I think people want a very predictable format with it's like you eat M&Ms, you want to taste like M&Ms. You go to a Holiday Inn, you want to be a Holiday Inn or a Marriott, and you don't want surprise. You want it to be pretty clear in format. So I think that's one thing we've resolved.
What led to this opportunity of being in television from politics? How were you able to make that jump?
Well, I started to do CBS Morning News once a week. I had a great commentary job on that show. Really high paid, in fact. Really high paid. I mean, over the top. And then I did McLaughlin a lot of that. I did Good Morning America for about 6 years. I got my own show in '93, I think it was. And it developed into Hardball. Hardball, of course, is the name of my first book. I took it from my book Hardball I wrote in '88, 20 years ago. I'm good at it because I was good working on the phones with Tip and dealing with him. I think a lot of it was being in the Peace Corps. I think a lot of it was just being able to ride around in a Suzuki and talk Zulu to people and have to deal with complete strangers who I liked, but I was different from in many ways, visually at least, and just having the guts to deal with strangers.
So you spent time in Swaziland.
I spent 2 years in Swaziland. I've been back a number of times too. I've been back to Africa a lot. That's one of my things. Movies in Africa, I guess, and politics. What else?
Sports.
Not real. I mean, I'm a Phillies fan and a Skins fan and to some extent an Eagles fan. I mean, I root for the Sox against the Yankees. That's easy. That's easy. The Sox were always one of my American League teams. When you grew up in Philly, which was a National League town most of the time, you tend to pick up a National League team, an American League team too, plus your hometown team. Most people do this. I mean, my brother was for the Yankees, so I was for Cleveland and Boston. Cleveland along those years. I didn't even know where Cleveland was, but I was for Cleveland because it was my brother's team. I don't know how you root for the Yankees. I don't get it.